So yeah, the schedule, quite something today. So of course, 22.10 is out. We'll start the Siebel Friday as is tradition with a recap of the latest features in Siebel 22.10. Then yeah, welcome to our special guest, Jason MacZura, Siebel Friday regular and master of Kubernetes, and he will enlighten us with details on how to run Siebel loyalty on OCI and Kubernetes. Looking forward to that. And Jason and many others probably have just come back from attending Oracle Cloud World, virtual or in person. So love to hear something about that. And we, of course, have some updates there. Then OCI AI services, it is with 22.10. So we'll have a bit more on that later. There's a new devpops release out and one coming up. So going to show you some devpops treats or tricks, up to you, in this Halloween edition. And yeah, last Siebel Friday, we kicked off a kind of public discussion on custom scripting. So I would like to, well, keep the ball rolling here. Whether it's a big ball of mud, you decide for yourself. All right. So let's check the chat. Okay. As always, please feel free to use the microphones or the chat to engage in the discussion or put in your comments. So first, let's take a look at Siebel CRM update 22.10, the 10th update delivered on the spot by Oracle as usual with the monthly releases. Yeah, please put your experience in the chat. Have you installed it already? Have you downloaded it? Have you even set up the latest feature, OCI AI services integration? So OCI, we all know what that is, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure AI. Well, it's not the Siebel AI, it's artificial intelligence services from Oracle Cloud, and they're now integrated out of the box, and that's exciting. So with the information we have so far, so the first glimpses in Bookshelf and other sources reveal that, well, OCI AI services are separate from Siebel. They exist on Oracle Cloud. We'll take a look into those. And Oracle provides us with a repository upgrade required pre-built integration. So you have to run repository upgrade to get all the necessary artifacts to get going. The pre-built integration uses the OCI SDK, the public Java developer kit. So at the core of it is a Java business service. And Oracle created two use cases, one for language and one for speech recognition. So the language AI service can do a lot of things, and Oracle included a use case where you can identify PII, that's personal identifiable information, like email addresses or phone numbers. So very sensitive information usually. And you can identify those in the service request description field. So Oracle choose that field to be special from now on. Of course, you have to do all the setup, etc. And when you save a service request now with sensitive information in the description field, you get a prompt. Well, it's version 1, so you get an alert in the browser that tells you there's an email address, like you see in the screenshot here. There's an email address in the description, and there's a new flag field which gets set to yes. Of course, this is talking to OCI, and the AI service uses NER. That's another acronym there, named entity recognition. So it can recognize in any text, large or small text, it can identify not just email addresses, but also phone numbers or organization names or IP addresses. So there's lots of named entities out of the box. And the second use case is built on the service request attachments. You see the transcribe button And if you upload a WAV file, those .wav files, like you have a recorded phone call, recorded conversation, and you click transcribe, the file is sent over to OCI, analyzed by the speech AI, and you get the speech transcription as text back as a new attachment, as you see on the screenshot as well. So yes, the magic of artificial intelligence is coming to Siebel CRM. So don't be shy. Tell me how excited you are about this.
I have a question, Alex. This is the same service that we're using actually in the experience, for example, or it's a different services?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Well, when you mentioned that you can translate the web to a text using a OCI services, like experience the video calling services or software as a service from OCI, they are using an also a services. This is the same or it's a different one?
Well, I think so. So if it's OCI speech, then it's the same service, yeah. Sorry, I might not have understood the question completely. You might want to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but that's something, and of course the geek I am, I looked into first I looked into what Oracle offers in the AI services area. I wasn't, to be honest, I really was like ignoring it for too long, maybe. So let me just jump right into that link here. So OCI has, of course, hundreds of services, and among them are AI services. So that's the official list as of now, is digital assistant, language, speech, vision, anomaly detection, and forecasting. So in 22.10, the use cases we just described, they are built on the language AI and speech AI service. But in theory, or well, not just theory, technical reality, you can integrate any application, including Siebel and including older versions of Siebel, as we'll see, for example, with the vision service. But you have to do it yourself. Oracle does not provide out-of-the-box integration yet, I might add, but purely speculative on my side, if that's a yet or a not at all, for roll your own. So that you might have looked into this already or not, or you might be aware that there are lots of services here which can be really useful for Siebel, like Vision can help extract information from documents, speaking of attachments, or anomaly detection can analyze data sets and scan for fraud or whatever. There's lots of stuff there, really, and we just don't have the time to go through each and every one of that. There's lots of tutorials on Oracle Cloud as well that you might want to watch on these. So again, 22.10 includes out-of-the-box use cases for language and speech. And how does this all work? So it's Siebel after all. So there's business services at the core of the functionality. There's two business services. When you run the repository upgrade, these two business services appear in your workspace. So OCI AI service, that's the one, like, let's call it internal. It's called by runtime events, or can be called by script or workflow or any other. It's a business service, right? And Oracle uses it for the two use cases. And then there's the OCI AI web service with web in it. So that's the connector service, so to speak, to the cloud. And it's documented to invoke it through inbound REST, which is, of course, one valid way of invoking it. But it's just a business service at the end of the day. It's a Java business service after all. So at runtime, Java code is running on the internal Tomcat, leveraging the OCI SDK, which is also packaged now in the Tomcat. It's a jar library. You must have your OCI config file with your credentials for valid OCI tenancy and a private key file for that user that you use. And then the connection is made to Oracle Cloud through the Java SDK. And, well, the API is used to do whatever you want. So, yeah, that's the underlying, the resulting architecture. It's classic Siebel architecture, but it's of course a clever move from Oracle to use the very, very big SDK from OCI. And speaking of the SDK, we'll come back to that later. So that OCI AI web service is the second business service, and I think we can treat it as the generic connector service for OCI AI service. It allows us to invoke various APIs and also manages the file upload and download. So that's all documented now in Bookshelf. And you can invoke it from anywhere, of course, and there's examples for the REST API. And I took the liberty of putting it to the test. As you can see in the screenshot here, following the documentation, you make an inbound REST call using POST, the classic Siebel service REST call. You have to pass in the context. And as you can see in my context here, I used batch detect language sentiments, which is another API for language. So a context not used in the Oracle use case. And seems to be working. So I sent over a document, some text about Siebel Hub, and it came back with a sentiment analysis of that text, which was like 65% positive. So that's a Siebel business service now. Okay, so that's really something.
All right, great. Well, I'll try to give you guys a 10-minute version of what's really spanned 2 different sessions at Cloud World. We had the honor of being able to present not once but twice our journey to OCI and the transformation that the team went through and the technology that we put into OCI, namely Siebel. Of course, it was a lot of other things that went into it. So a lot of the key folks that were part of the solution are listed here on the slide. There are a few of my colleagues on the phone today that if I misspeak about any of the amazing work that they've done, I ask them to go off mute and speak up. But anyway, I'll go through this from a Siebel practitioner's point of view, the best that I can, and just talk about what we did. All right, yep, it's the Siebel Friday edition. Well, the big news from our perspective wasn't just about lifting and shifting and going into OCI with legacy applications. It was actually putting Siebel in Kubernetes, running an OKE on Oracle Cloud, and that's what we'll try to focus on. But just to set a little bit of groundwork, our organization supports 2 sets of stakeholders. There's one stack that we call SPA, or Siebel Platform Applications. It in itself has 5 or so different business applications it supports, including the Admirals Club. If you're a frequent traveler, if you've ever gone by an airport where you check in at the Admirals Club, that's actually running on one of our hosted applications, and it's in OCI. And it has a footprint. It's had a footprint there since 2020. And in fact, we moved those apps into Kubernetes in November 2021. So we've been able to do this twice, actually. But the big news, most recent news, is that we moved a very critical application to OCI and into Kubernetes. This is what we call Ventana. It supports our loyalty platform, or the Advantage program, which is the industry's largest airline loyalty program, if you will. You can see the UI component to it, which I think looks pretty nice and modern at this point. We recently upgraded to 22.8. It's supported by some other IBM software, again, all running on an Oracle database running in Exadata Cloud Service. But what that means from a footprint standpoint is that we use a lot of the common IaaS services in a few different regions in OCI. And you can see here on the right what things have been put into Kubernetes by looking at the little Kubernetes ship wheel logo. But the big component to all of this too that I won't have a lot of time to get into is the fact that we've supplemented our OCI footprint with a lot of open source. All right, and I'll skip past a bit of this, but I did talk about why OCI, which might be of relevance to you and your company, but OCI was a good place to be for our footprint. But bigger question is, well, why put Siebel in Kubernetes in OKE in OCI, right? And I think that may be more relevance to this crowd. We wanted first and foremost to have a self-healing architecture. As you know, pods that are running that go into an unhealthy state get automatically restarted, which is very nice. We actually took advantage of that inadvertently when we first, the first few weeks of go live. And we wanted to be both prepared from a skills perspective and a technology perspective for Siebel component services. This is something that we're excited about, the Siebel roadmap, because we'd love to take advantage of native horizontal pod auto scaling when and if that arrives. But in the meantime, there's still a lot of other benefits that we can get from putting legacy Siebel into Kubernetes. There's actually less to manage from an infrastructure standpoint. We're using fewer but larger VMs for our nodes in the cluster. But what's really cool is that we can use all of these Kubernetes-related technologies, these open source tools, to improve the observability that we have over our infrastructure. We can use GitOps tooling to automate the deployment of monthly updates and rolling back if needed, which we can do very quickly in an automated fashion. We can deploy an entire environment very quickly using these tool sets. And a lot of this is all open source, so it's really just the compute power that these things need. But there's also the benefit of extending the useful life of Siebel and making Siebel cool again. So from a timeline standpoint, this one's very focused on just our most recent one. There's an overlapping timeline where we've gone live with our SPA enterprise in 2020 and then upgraded them into Kubernetes in November. But along the way, we were also working on the loyalty platform, and that entire effort took about 8 months. But I have to thank Alex and Duncan Ford for the groundwork that they laid back in 2018. We were playing with a POC in Docker Swarm back then, and we could see Kubernetes was a possibility because Docker was a possibility. I see Alex's comment. All right, I won't go into this, but our cutover took about an hour. All right, let's actually look at what it means to containerize Siebel. Well, first it means taking the out-of-box image and customizing it a bit. We start with our base OS image at the database client, which you would see if you download that from GitHub, includes Siebel binaries. We need to do some mapping for the PVs, and in our case, because we have MQ receivers and there's a tight coupling with MQ and being able to talk to those locally, we added MQ into that custom image. Upload that into Artifactory, and now you've got a referenceable image that you can, in theory, deploy anywhere to any environment. Now, Dinesh would do a much better job of explaining this, and Dinesh is on the call to answer questions. I just wanted to point out, again, in the interest of time, that when it comes to building your Kubernetes deployment, that the key here is that a legacy application like Siebel isn't necessarily deployed as a deployment of pods. It's a stateful set. And that's really the big key, because the gateway server needs to count on the names of those servers and the IPs of those servers, going with a stateful set deployment is what gets you there. And really, that's the secret. We can look at this in another way, and I tried to make this as simple as possible. But when we look at the flow of a request from a user, well, first they're accessing an endpoint that is on Oracle Cloud. If that request runs through a Palo Alto firewall, then routed to an OCI load balancer. Or at that point, it hits one of 10 nodes. Using the node port service, it directs that request to the appropriate reverse proxy Apache stateful set. Then we hit our SAI, and again, some of these initials should start looking more familiar, right, with our gateway, our application interface, and the SES servers. All of those, though, need mapping into a persistent volume to retain configuration files or some kind of state at some point that we don't want to lose should the server restart. And you know, even log archive files are important, you know, for troubleshooting, right? And so that there's a lot that had to be mapped into PVs based on the file system storage class, and all of this cluster connects to our Exadata cloud service for the database. All right, see, very simple, huh? Well, when it came to mapping our on-prem footprint to the cloud footprint in Kubernetes, we took a very conservative approach. We've come to find, and everybody knows this already, that an equivalent VM instance runs much more efficiently as a pod because there's a lot more that's shared among those pods within a node. But this being, you know, very critical application for us, we just basically did a one-to-one. We had 25 application servers, whether that was gateway or AI or different flavors of SES, and we mapped those into 25 pods and put those into 10 worker nodes, very large size worker nodes. Those worker nodes look like this. We see that we've got a production Kubernetes cluster. In this case, we're able to upgrade. We've actually upgraded a few times since go live, the Kubernetes cluster itself. But we have got very large shaped worker nodes, and on it we deploy a mix of the different Siebel components and other components that support the application. A different live view of that, if you will, is here. You see we've got one instance of the gateway server, application interface, and a Siebel application or enterprise server, all part of the cprod namespace. But if you notice here, there are all sorts of other things that need to run on a given node to support the system. We've got a component of MQ on here. We've got Prometheus. We've got, of course, the cube system components that run as daemon sets, or you know, other system components running on the node. But this is just a view into one of the nodes. With that being said, we again, from a high availability standpoint, we split these across all of these nodes. Okay, now we'll talk about more of these things later. We're actually set up to speak in the November CAB, but I did want to point out an interesting finding is that when it came to mapping all of our persistent volumes, and you think about what Siebel generates as it runs, we missed a few directories, and that ended up being a problem because we had some debugging turned on, and internally we were writing to, I believe, siebserver/log and a few other places under temp, where because that was all written to ephemeral storage, it increased not only size on the disk, but the size of the memory of the image, actually the running container itself, and it maxed out the limits set for that pod, and pod restarted. And so we had to attack that from two angles. One was to take some of those and map them to persistent volumes so that they were always writing out to permanent disk, and just as a precaution, set up some cron jobs to go clean that stuff out. A couple of other long-term solutions, I think we could go there, but it was really interesting to see that we were getting warnings both on disk space usage and memory, because the running container itself was growing and growing over time. So every few weeks, it would max out and restart. And that was actually an interesting bit of troubleshooting that we partnered with Oracle on, that they helped us in identifying. But that being said, it does run really well. This is a look into our Grafana view. On the lower left is 7-day rolling average of expected daily peaks and valleys of CPU. Memory has been since then very consistent. Network bandwidth in and out has been very nice. And in fact, we have a Slack channel set up just for production monitoring. And I had to send a test message just to make sure everything was still on, because after we resolved some of the pod restart issues, it's been wonderfully boring. And we've had no issues in OCI running since then. Knock on wood. Okay, again, I feel like I'm going to take way too much time going through all this, but there are a lot of good benefits that we've been able to realize operationally. We're scalable, we're reliable, we're resilient, and we're cost effective. And because we've been able to automate the deployment of our patching around Siebel and other third-party applications, we can stay even more secure by staying up on the latest binaries that come out. So there's a little picture of the team. We all had t-shirts made up called Legends, because our senior leadership said, what you guys do is legendary. And I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. So we made t-shirts. And this was just 4 days after going live in May on OCI. So, all right, well, I'll quickly go through this, but just to let you guys know that, Siebel's certainly containerizable. Not everything is, and there are some trade-offs and considerations. You have to define very large nodes that run very large pods to run a very large Siebel footprint, right? But to do that, it takes an awesome team. I have an awesome team. Again, there's some folks from the team on here who can answer questions much better than I can. I'm just reflecting the work that this team has done. But it's important that you support them in their learning, and trust and celebrate the effort, not necessarily the outcome. All right. Okay, well, again, I don't want to take too much more of your time, but even elephants like Siebel can dance by putting it into this kind of modern cloud architecture. All right, that's what I have.
Okay, wow. Thanks, Jason. That is really a stunning journey, and kudos to the whole team. You're a real legend.
Oh, thank you, Alex.
And I think I never heard the terms wonderfully boring and Siebel in the same presentation. And that's a good thing, no? Boring is good.
Indeed, when it comes to operations, boring is good.
Yeah, and the congratulations are coming in. Yeah, please give Jason a hand and the team for this truly exciting journey and a glimpse into the future of Siebel. Well, you're living in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned component services.
Yes.
I guess that you're engaged in the beta.
We are indeed. We are indeed. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, are you monitoring the chat? There's I see one question from Domagoy. Why 3 gateway servers?
In fact, our separate enterprise for SPA has, I believe, 8. Zookeeper recommends a bare minimum of 3, and so it's representing each of those Zookeeper instances.
So you keep the Zookeeper cluster even if you have Kubernetes nodes who would take care of Zookeeper going down?
Yes. Yeah. Even then, we still define it as a stateful set.
Right. Well, you can run the Zookeeper cluster, sure enough. But I'm guessing here, but shouldn't be necessary, right? You could run with one zookeeper as a pod.
That's a fantastic point. We'll write that down as a user story and look into it.
keep us posted how that works out. Well, I happen to know that Siebel runs perfectly fine on one zookeeper, unless it goes down, of course. Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. Thanks very much, Jason. Again. And this is recorded, and you're fine with being published on YouTube?
I believe so. Most of the information here was shared within the cloud world, and so I think that should be okay.
Okay. Yeah. So
I was there. I saw that. So yes, it's published already.
Okay. There's another question coming in from Christian for Jason. How do you roll out new pods with a new Siebel version? Is a rolling update possible? Like gateway on 22.
It is. Yeah, I see Avinash responded in chat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we can speak about that a little bit more. Avinash, you want to go off mute and explain?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we have time. So that's.
I think this is very interesting how you
how in general how do you go about updating to, let's say, 22.10? You just
on 25 servers without downtime and just with Kubernetes.
We had actually identified a way in working with Mehdi Garami that Siebel will run pretty well in a mixed version environment as you are taking down servers and upgrading those servers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, there's Avinash. And we also have Dinesh, who knows plenty about this as well.
Can you hear me, Jason?
Yes. Yeah,
yes,
Avinash,
there you are.
we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So this is a good question, actually, and it also explains you why we need 3 gateway servers, right? So this rolling update, when we do, right, we take first, we do, I will explain in one or 2 minutes, but out of 3 gateways, we just, we take the first gateway, non-primary gateway, and upgrade it to the higher version. And then we start upgrading the other Siebel servers. So what happens is, once you have the upgraded gateway, the upgraded Siebel servers start connecting to the new gateway, and the other 2 gateways will be in a lower version. And if we have like 20 servers, right? Out of 20 servers, we start upgrading one after the other, like 5 servers or something. So as and when you upgrade the first 5 servers, those will get connected to the new gateway that you upgraded in first instance. And you roll like that and make sure that gateways are upgraded at interval. Like the more servers you upgrade the second gateway, and at last you upgrade the last gateway after upgrading all your Siebel servers. So in that way, there is no outage at all, and you will upgrade without any issues.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thanks. So so that is like the Siebel server on 22.10. Let's say it would always look for a gateway on 22.10. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's wow. Okay, and I have one question. Is like, are you doing the full GitOps update? Like you just change a number in a YAML file and commit that?
Right, we change the image file, like we create an image, like currently we have 22.8 say currently is running, and we want to 22.10. So we create a new image with 22.10, and we use Helm to upgrade the Kubernetes clusters. So then we give the command like Helm update, and then what we do is it is not automatic. We have made it on update in the Helm. That means when we can delete a pod, only it updates when we delete a pod. So the new pod, when it comes up, it will be with the updated version, so that we will have a full control, like whether we want to do gateway first or this server first or AI server first. So we want to take that control on our hand. Okay. So we did on update in the Helm itself, Helm upgrade itself.
Okay. Thanks much, Avinash. And it's a lot of terminology we have heard in the past 20 minutes from Jason and Avinash, like Helm and other things, or PV for that. So one thing that helped me understand this a little bit better was actually checking out the Siebel Cloud Manager that we talked about in previous Siebel Fridays. You guys are familiar with that offering. And because Siebel Cloud Manager really produces the architecture that Jason just described, with Siebel running as Kubernetes pods. So you can really see this is working, and you can run a sandbox on it, literally on your OCI tenancy. So one final question maybe to Avinash and Jason. Was Siebel Cloud Manager involved in this in any way?
The short answer is no. I'll let Dinesh elaborate.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we did a previously on Siebel Cloud Manager.
You're barely audible.
Oh, just a second.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dinesh, I don't know if you can switch audio quickly or not, but right, looking into the Siebel Cloud Manager has been a separate underlying thread, but we got started a bit early ahead of that program and kind of forged our own path forward into production.
Okay, and I guess that some of the findings on your side were fed back into Siebel Cloud Manager as it is today. Is that correct? It's an assumption that I made.
Perhaps we try to keep an open communication back to the product team.
Yeah, because So if anyone hasn't tried Cloud Manager yet, then really you have to try it out for yourself and see. Wow, this Siebel running on Kubernetes, and even without the lift and shift, it's spectacular. Okay, so let's try to get the curve back to the Siebel Friday topics here. So Oracle Cloud World, yeah. Well, Jason, you just came back from Las Vegas. You said you had 2 presentations there, and people were watching in person. On the Siebel Hub side, Richard Napier, Siebel Hub partner, he was on site in Las Vegas, and he has a lot of information, and he did an interview with George Jacob, the very George, and that interview is now being edited and being reviewed, and it's slated to be published next week. So watch out for the latest news on Siebel. Even if there was no dedicated Siebel session on Oracle Cloud World, there was a lot of information, a lot of buzz around, well, OCI, of course, and Applications Unlimited. Speaking of which, the Applications Unlimited days are coming up in Europe. So we have a post up on the Siebel Hub on that. If you're based in Europe and you want to attend the Applications Unlimited days, glad to meet you maybe in person. I'll be in Paris and Frankfurt later in November.
Can I please? Here's Angelos.
Oh, Angelos, you're here, right? Hi.
Yes. So we have also posted on our Applications Unlimited website the dates, and if you have interest and you are in a big city, those dates of Europe, then please let me know, and I can send you the invitation, either per LinkedIn or per email. I can also write my mail address and my LinkedIn profile on the chat. So in Frankfurt, it is on the 8th of December. In Utrecht, in Netherlands, it is on the 6th of December. And then we have also in London, we have in Paris, we have, I think, in
Copenhagen, Madrid.
Yes. So reach out to me, and I can send you the link with the information, the agenda, and the registration. More or less, we are going to have the roadmap session with John Bedford, and then Richard Spearman is going to present a workshop with the news of Siebel, and then we are going to have several customers that you can also have your networkings with them. So we aim for more for free time that you can also speak in person with other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you.
Fellow Europeans or people who love to travel, make sure you note that. Angelos, if you don't mind, can you post that link in the chat so people can grab it right away? Okay.
I posted my email address and I will also post the link right away.
Okay, thanks much, Angelos. Yeah, great to have you. Okay, so yeah, let's pick up on the AI services. We're still on the cloud, so Oracle Cloud it is, and I was inspired by 22.10 and the OCI integration. So I was wondering, okay, OCI has this SDK, the Java SDK, and I downloaded it. And well, my first Java version was 1.2 back in the 90s. So I wouldn't call myself a Java developer, but I can write some. And so I set about, okay, can I do this? Can I connect Siebel to OCI, even if it's not 22.10? Of course, it works in 22.10 as well. I created my own Java business service using the SDK and implemented the Vision AI service. So Siebel can now recognize a tree or a Chihuahua or or a banana. And of course, what's the use case? The use case is that you have an attachment, which would be a photo in that case, or a graphic file, could be a document, and you could use other services to analyze the text in the document or OCR the image, you know, if it's a scanned letter or a scanned fax, if you're in Germany, sorry. And so, yeah, I wanted to demonstrate this. Let's bear with me. It's a live demo because we're also going devpops. So here's this is a 22.6 devpops environment. And it has nothing to do with devpops, sorry, but I'm using the service runner. So the devpops service runner, got my demo prepared here. So that's what the presets are for. So my business service is called BCRM OCI adapter. Show you the code in a moment. Not too much code here. And I'm calling the analyze image service on OCI. And the image data is provided as you can see, a base 64 string. So let me show you that image first. Where is that? That's the image I encoded in base 64. It's the image I used for the presentation as well. So imagine this is like an attachment coming out of Siebel as base 64 maybe. Let's call the service. So the service takes base 64 and it comes back as identifying a human arm, a wrist. I don't know what serveware is, but I can guess kitchenware. So it recognized something with confidence, rather high confidence value. So this is the property set I'm creating in the output property set. Okay, let's try a different image. Calling it with a different image, and this one is a slightly bigger, so a bigger test case. It takes longer. Eventually we'll come back. There we go. Okay, so that's the tree. So that's the image of the tree that you have on the screen here. So, well, it's possible. That's the prototype. I have a video ready for that, which will be published on YouTube soon. And here's some test cases I did. So I even did the famous Chihuahua versus Muffin test, which is which it identified the Muffin with great confidence as a carnivore or dog, which happens to all AIs apparently. So there's no exception there. But my AI-generated Skynet crisps, it identified as snacks, so which is cool. Okay, so there's also some code behind that. That's the Java code here. And that code is going on GitHub. It will be linked with the video on YouTube. Lots of imports, of course, standing on the shoulders of giants here. And yeah, having a dispatcher functionalities. I can do various contexts like analyze image, and I will not go through the code. It's dreary, dry Java code. Interesting part is get the authentication done quickly and then address the API. And thanks to the many examples on OCI, I was able to cobble this prototype together. All right. And yeah, wrapping up on the OCI AI services integration. So a completely new feature in 22.10. And happy to announce the availability here of a new module in the Siebel 22 Plus workshop. So if you happen to have purchased the entire workshop, that's a new module you get in your learning. But you can also purchase the module separately as is custom on the Siebel Hub workshop page. Just pointing you there real quick to the modules. So here's the new OCI AI services module available for a very reasonable price, and including demonstrations how to set everything up. So you can get once you have 22.10, you can follow this along. So I'm sharing the link in the chat. Okay, what's anything to say about OCI AI? Checking the chat. I think
it's a fantastic innovation. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And so you're looking into it, integrating it with AI services, Siebel?
Yes, absolutely. I think this brings a capability back to our business that they might not have been aware.
Yeah. So, and then what service would be the most valuable for you? Like,
that's a good question. We've got a number of different business stakeholders, but so far the speech to text transcription I think might be very helpful in a call center environment. But ultimately, it's up to us to present the menu of available capabilities and see what might be prioritized.
Okay, so I think if I have time, I will expand my prototype to document recognition. I think that's for Siebel attachments. That's like the real killer use case. No? Like you have those PDFs and whatnot, and fetch some data out of the and maybe analyze it.
I think a low-hanging fruit could be the sentiment of an incoming request. So if you have a service or a sales application and you get a mail, so the mood of the mail just to pop up the agent or...
Right, okay, brace for impact.
Yes, this could be a low-hanging fruit because you don't have much business process and things like that.
And that even works
with the mail, just a priority based on...
Yeah, so that's a good thing, and it's even possible with the out-of-the-box service. So you can pass the correct property set to the business service, and you get the text sentiment analysis.
Did you play with that?
Yeah, I did. That's the one screenshot I showed here. So that's the
there it was. Yes.
OCI AI web service, the standard web service, but with language sentiment. I was just curious, would it work or not? And it came back with a result. So yes, that's a really low-hanging fruit there. So that's, you don't even have to write Java, which is Nick's question, what do you do if you don't know Java? So there's an SDK, Nick, Oracle has a lot of SDKs for, I think, Python, .NET, PHI. I'm not struggling to translate PHI, but yeah, there's a lot of SDKs, or there's a REST API as well. Okay, personal health, right. Okay, so thanks for that. So yeah, you have seen the environment that I set up has devpops. So let's go back to good old devpops, kind of anniversary edition, because I think in the first Siebel Friday I introduced it, and now it's the 20th Siebel Friday, and have been working on some updates. One of which was inspired by our friend Jason. In a discussion we had, Jason, I mentioned, or you mentioned in a comment, that you like the auto resizing of columns, which I would of course have to show. Yeah, you have to, seeing is believing. So let's say we go to a view with a really big list applet. Okay, there we go. So there's a chunky list applet on top. And I already played around with this, but usually your list applets, when you, especially after running the wizard, they're like so, you know, every column is the same size. And developers are taking, of course, great care, hopefully. Let's add a few more, maybe a few more list columns. Yeah, that's a big. So I'm just adding a few more list columns to drive it home. So the readability of those list columns might not be good. And of course, you can resize them individually, but if you have like 20 of them, it's hard. So introducing an auto resize button on the applet itself, or now in the next version, there will be Lizard, the list column wizard, as I call it. Notice I'm in a writable, I'm inspecting a writable workspace here. Yeah. So one piece of functionality, let me go back to main real quick. So one piece of functionality is to simply adjust with one button click. It takes a while, but as you can see, it adjusts to the visible text. The product type doesn't work, but the columns are now more or less in good shape, representing the text they display. And if you're in a writable workspace, so Jason's comment was that you liked this a lot, thank you. And what if, I think your comment was more or less, it would be great to kind of include this in web tools as a save it permanently. So now it's of course saved in my user preferences, so individual user, but let's say I'm working on this list applet as a developer, and I want to use the calculated width of each and every column and write it back to the repository into that workspace. So you have to inspect an editable workspace. And now if I run the wizard, let's use the toolbar. It recognizes there's a writable workspace and gives you the calculated numbers. So you can even adjust them. So let's make the name a little bit bigger. Here's a preview. Okay, name column is wider now. And then you can save it to the workspace. And you can see it does it one by one. It goes green. Now all are green. That's REST calls I'm using to the workspace REST API. So thanks to Jason's inspiration, we have now a real write back from the client. That's something I always wanted to implement, a real write back from the client to the repository. So let's prove this. So if I look up this applet in WebTools, I have to open the workspace again because it's now version 2. You already see the applet being updated. Opening version 2 of that. And there's the applet, list columns. Yeah, you see they're already changed. The width has changed. I think it's sorted. Yeah, there's the 255 I had for the name. So it's all written back. So you can test it. You can deliver it. Changes, well, 20 plus or any number of columns you have immediately. So that's the preview of, you get a sneak preview of the 2211 devpops here. And also, if you happen to enable it, then let's say, let's pick a few here in the flat tab. That's, yeah, of course it's being, when it detects a meeting, it's always slowing down a little bit. That's like that. So this, the lizard is now available also in WebTools, thanks to the illegal, illicit devpops extension. So clicking that will arrange the columns in WebTools as well. It can, of course, not save them to the repository. That's WebTools is in safe mode, safe boot, but it can help. Another thing that I did work with was when you test out some CSS changes. Of course, what do we all do? If you do it on a regular basis, you go to, well, this guy here, developer tools, and you make your selection and you play around with it, right? So you start playing around with these standard CSS that you have, like changing the color. Okay, changing color of the applet background, really bad. But you can play around with the Chrome developer tools, of course. But of course, once you refresh the page or even leave the view sometimes, your changes are not saved. We all know that. And that's a valid way. I wanted something, let's say you wanted something more permanent, but still not permanent in a style sheet. You're still experimenting, or you want to have your own flavor of Siebel, let's say. So here's the CSS injector. So it comes with a quick sample. So change the font family to monospace. So you can preview, you can put in your CSS and you can preview it. So for 10 seconds, it applies that CSS by literally injecting it in the header and then removing it after 10 seconds. It goes back to normal. Or you can apply this and then it will be permanent thanks to setting here, persistent setting in local storage. I'll probably have to do it again. You see the font is now monospaced, and even if I refresh the page, the red will be gone because I made that in Chrome. But yeah, you see the monospace font family is still used. So I have that permanent now, even if I log off and log on because it's in browser storage. And of course, once you're confident with it, you put it in a style sheet. Yeah. Okay. So that's another feature coming in the 22.11 devpops that you see here. Okay, so I've seen some people going about it in the chat. Okay, Jason likes the lizard. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jason. And Carrie, thanks for the feedback. Yeah, so happy to share with your team. Okay. All right. So yeah, again, remember devpops is a demo. It's an open UI demo. Things that you can do, nothing that you should do in certain environments. So keep it safe. Right? You all know the drill about devpops for sure. Okay, I know we're doing overtime here, so reaching 1 hour, and I know that most of you plan for 1 hour attending the Siebel Friday, so I don't want to push it. So the scripting discussion, maybe we'll leave that to next Siebel Friday, which will not be November as I'm traveling, so will be December. So that's 2 months, or maybe we'll just have an impromptu Siebel Friday in the middle of the month or something. So I'll keep you posted on that. I wanted to point your attention to one thing, to this Siebel Hub YouTube channel, as I do. And I've created a new poll. You know, these polls pointing, sharing the link in the chat, the Siebel Hub YouTube community page. And the poll I put up is, let's be honest about your Siebel scripting strategy, a bit tongue-in-cheek. What is your Siebel scripting strategy? Is it the famous big ball of mud? And you can look that up here, a big ball of mud on Wikipedia, yeah, what it means. Or is it organically grown brain-melting mess, as most of us would probably put it? Do you have Slack discussions on systems Hungarian versus apps Hungarian? Look that up. Then you're in maybe the minority here. Or we don't use any code. Yeah, just kidding there. Of course, nobody does that. Or is there? I heard of one project, they don't write any eScript, but maybe they write some business services. Not sure about that. So yeah, please, if you have some time, fill in that poll to, well, tell us how bad it is, really. Just refreshing. Oh yeah, there's some votes coming in. Oh, somebody clicked no code. Okay, so Carrie, that was you. Okay, Oracle uses no. Well, there is eScript. There is eScript. Just search the repository. Okay, so yeah, with that, I'd say thank you very much. I'll leave the microphones open. The chat is open. If you have any questions, if you have to go, of course, that's now the official end of the Siebel Friday. I'll keep you posted when the next Siebel Friday is. Last Friday in November, it will not be. And maybe we see each other in one of the Apps Unlimited days. Okay,